Hey guys, my name is Scoby and welcome back to another video. In today's video I'm going to be showing you how to play PlayStation 2 games on your Xbox Series S or your Xbox Series X. This is going to be the most up-to-date method as of November 2021. I'm going to be showing you step by step how to do everything. Let's jump right into this. So I will mention before we get too far into today's video, for this method you're already going to need to have both dev mode and Retroarch already installed on your Xbox Series S or your Xbox Series X. I'm not going to be showing you that in today's video, although I do have a previous video where I show you step by step how to do that. First thing you need to do is go over there, watch that, then you can come back here and I'll be showing you specifically how to set up PS2 and play PS2 games on your Xbox. Now one extra thing to keep in mind with this core is that PCSX2 is still in development and some games will not perform very well. Some will perform weird and others will perform perfectly, so this is something to keep in mind. It is still a work in progress, so don't expect every game to work perfectly when you're actually trying to play this. So for this video we're going to be using the most up-to-date version of dev mode and Retroarch as of November 2021. Now sadly in the latest version my Files Explorer no longer works, so we're going to be doing all of this methods and transfer using a mapped network drive on our computer. Now if you followed my most up-to-date Retroarch install video, we have that already done. However, if you don't, we're going to be showing you step by step how to do that next. But if you already have your network drive mapped, you can feel free to skip this step. Although we are going to be going into detail a little bit further at the end about setting up games and putting them on your internal drive, but I'll explain that a little bit further later. So the first thing again we need to do is open up our Xbox device portal. This of course can be found on the dashboard of our dev mode. You can find this access portal and we're going to need to open this up in any browser that you want. From this point what we're going to be doing is coming to our left bar right here. We're going to be clicking on File Explorer and this is going to open up the File Explorer section. Once we're here we're going to be coming to the top right and we're going to be clicking on this browse option right here. This is going to open up a pop-up that's going to allow us to access remotely some files on our Xbox and access the internal storage on our Xbox. So to do this, what we need to do is copy this URL here at the very top. We can highlight it, we can right click and we can click copy. And we're going to be opening up a File Explorer on our Windows. We're going to be clicking on the URL path right here. We're going to be pasting in the URL that we just got. And we're going to be clicking enter to enter here. Now, if this is your first time doing this, it may ask you for a username and password. All of this information is also stored here, so you can simply copy all of this for your username and password. Now this can get a little bit annoying as every time you want to get back here, you will need to manually enter this URL, you'll need to manually enter the password, and you'll need to manually enter the username. So instead what we're going to be doing is two things. The first thing we're going to be doing is opening up our command prompt, and we're going to be automatically saving this password and username, so we no longer have to enter it manually again. To do this again, we're going to be opening up our web browser and we're going to be copying this CMD key here at the bottom. We're simply going to highlight it, we're going to right click and we're going to be clicking copy. From this point, we're going to be opening up CMD in Windows. To do this, we're going to be coming down to the bottom left. We're going to be clicking on our search bar and we're going to be searching for CMD and we're going to be looking for the command prompt right here. We're going to left click to open this up and our command prompt should open. Once this is open, all we need to do is right click here. It will automatically paste everything we have. We simply click enter and then we should get this result here, credential added successfully. And that basically attaches this username and password to our Windows, so it'll automatically remember it every time. From this point, we have made it a lot easier. However, now from this point, you still need to know this URL every time you want to actually access the remote files. So what we're going to be doing is one extra step. This is optional, but we're going to be setting up a mapped network drive. So it'll actually be saved in our Windows so we can easily get back here whenever we want. What we're going to be doing again is copying this file path. We're going to be opening up another file browser in Windows and we're going to be clicking on this PC right here. And then here at the very top, we should have this option, map network drive. We can left click to open this. And here we're going to be able to enter a new drive that will automatically store this location. And since we've already saved the username and password in Windows, it means we'll really easily be able to access back here whenever we want. So the first thing you need to do is assign a drive letter. So you can choose whatever you want here. So I've already done this to my Z drive, but you can attach it to another drive, for example, Y, or any other available letter here in your Windows. We can then enter our folder location. So here you can just Control V again to paste in the folder location that you've set up previously. You can then enable automatic reconnect and sign in. I'm going to be disabling this, but you can feel free to enable this and you can connect using different credentials, although we're not going to be doing that in today's video. Once you're happy with everything here, you can click finish and then you will have a new mapped network drive that will show up here like this. It'll mention development files. It will then show the URL to your Xbox and now clicking this will open this up very easily. So we no longer have to locate back here manually. From this point, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be opening up the Windows apps folder and here we should see all of the currently installed apps on our Xbox. So at the top here we have my Files Explorer. Underneath this then I have two folders named Platinum Fox and they have Retroarch mentioned in the title. This is my Retroarch folder, although depending on the version you're using it may be named slightly different, but there will be two folders here. Previously this folder started with 1E4C, although this can depend widely depending on the version you're using and depending on if it's a nightly or not, so I really don't know what to expect here. But you're going to be looking for some folder named Retroarch or something like 1E4C. Once you've located this folder, we're going to be looking for the second one on the list. It'll typically be a much larger folder. As you can see, this is around 1.4 gigabytes and the other one is around 3.5 kilobytes. We're going to be opening up this second folder and here we should see all of our default installed Retroarch content. What we're going to be doing from this point is creating a new folder here that's going to store our BIOS files, or a brand new system folder, or creating a brand new system BIOS folder so we can access and transfer all of the BIOS files we need for our emulators over here, or for today's video specifically the GBA emulator. What we need to do is right click here. We're going to be creating a new folder and I'm going to be naming it system. And this is going to be our new system or BIOS folder for Retroarch. After this, we're going to be heading over to Retroarch and we're going to be manually mapping this so Retroarch knows to point here instead. While we're here, we can also add a couple of extra folders. We can add a saves folder, we can add a save state folder, we can add a config folder, and we can even add a games folder. Here you can pick and choose all of the different files that you will access regularly from Retroarch, and we can remap them so Retroarch will look here instead of on the internal Xbox storage that we cannot actually access any other way. Doing this method, we will easily be able to access this. We can make backups, we can make copies. So this is definitely a method I'd recommend doing it. But for today's video, the only one that is necessary is creating a system folder, although you can feel free to make any of the other folders here as well that you like, but it is totally optional. From this point, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be launching Retroarch from here, and we're going to be brought up to our Retroarch UI. From here, we're going to be coming to the left, we're going to be coming to settings, and now we're going to be scrolling down until we see directory. And here we can see the directory for all the different assets inside Retroarch. So the first thing we're going to be looking for is the BIOS and system file, as you can see right here. We're going to be clicking the A button to open this up. Once this opens up, we're going to be scrolling down until we see the S drive. We're going to be clicking the A button. We're going to be scrolling down to program files. We're going to be coming to Windows apps. And then we're going to be looking for our Retroarch folder, the same one that we've seen on our computer. So for me, it's Platinum Fox. I'm going to be looking for the second folder. And here I'm going to be looking for my system folder. I'm going to be clicking use this directory. And now what we've done is we have remapped this directory to our system folder on our mapped network drive. So Retroarch will now search there for our BIOS files instead of the default location. So from this point, you can feel free to update any of the other files you want. I'm going to be doing my config file, my save file, and a couple of the other ones. From this point, once you have everything mapped, we're simply going to be clicking the B button to come back out of here. We're then going to be coming to our main menu and we're going to be coming to our configuration file and we're going to be saving our current config just so all of these extra changes are in Retroarch. So after you have your network drive fully mapped, as mentioned, the main thing we're going to be needing here is our system folder. However, we can also set up a games folder here. Now we don't actually have to link this anywhere inside Retroarch, although we are going to be leaving this folder on our Xbox, so we can easily put games here. Now when we're on the topic of games, games can be played directly from the internal storage on your Xbox or from an external drive, although I would highly recommend playing them from the internal storage on your Xbox. The loading times are a lot better, there's a lot less chance of errors happening when you're loading them from an internal storage, but sadly PS2 games do get quite big, being around 4 to 8 gigabytes depending on the game, so it will take up quite some storage, but I would still definitely recommend doing it this way. Now I currently have my game here, Jak and Daxter. Now while we're on this point, I will not be showing you how to get games or how to download games. You'll have to find them yourself, or you can feel free to create a dump or backup of any games that you already have. However, if you are like me and you're downloading your games, they will most likely come in a .7-zip or a .rar format. If this is the case, we are going to have to extract them first before we can play them on Retroarch. If this is the case, you are going to need WinRAR or 7-zip to actually extract the games out. I'll be leaving both of these applications linked in the description down below. To extract your games, it's really easy. We simply right click, we hover over 7-zip or WinRAR, whatever you have installed, and we're simply going to be clicking extract files. You can then click OK, and then your files are going to extract out. Now once they extract out, you are specifically looking for a .iso format, or also a CISO format will also work. Either of these is what we're specifically looking for on our PS2. Now from this point, all we need to do is drag these games over to our internal storage, or to your external storage if you're doing it. But as mentioned, I would recommend doing the internal storage, and that's exactly what I'm going to be doing in today's video. So I'm going to be dragging these over here and putting them inside like this. So now that my game is transferred over, I'm going to be doing one extra thing and just creating a specific PS2 Games folder. That's just specifically for me to have my game structured a bit better. This is totally optional, but you can feel free to do this if you want, just to have your game specifically in here. From this point, we currently have talked about our games. We have everything set up over there. But the next thing we're going to be needing to discuss is the actual system and the BIOS files that we're going to be needing for our PS2 core. Now, sadly, on our Xbox, there's quite a few things we're going to need to do here. The first thing we need to do is head over to a web browser. The next thing we're going to need to do is head over to a web browser. And once we're on our web browser, we're going to be locating to this website, and this is going to be for PCSX2.net. And here we're going to be downloading the PS2 emulator for PC to actually take some files from this. To this, we're going to be coming here. We're going to be coming to our menu here at the top. We're going to be hovering over the download section, and we're going to be clicking on Windows. We're going to be downloading the latest PCSX2 standalone installer right here. Just take whatever the latest version is. At the time of recording, it's 1.6.0. Simply click the download button here on the right, and we're going to be downloading this PS2 file. Once this is done, you're simply going to move it to a location where you can find it easily. I currently have it inside another folder. What I'm going to be doing is double left clicking on this exe file, and we're going to be installing it. From this point, we're going to be selecting a portable installation so we can access the files really easily. You can select a normal installation if you would like, if you're planning to use it separately. But for today's video, I'm just going to be using a portable installation. I'm going to be clicking next. We can then set all the files we want to set up here. I'm going to be disabling the shortcut and the menu shortcuts. Again, I'm going to be clicking next. And then I'm going to be selecting wherever you want to put these files. Now I'm going to be keeping it in the same folder that I transferred to previously. So I'm just going to be clicking here. I'm going to be clicking Ctrl+C to copy, and I'm going to be pasting that location here. But you can feel free to put it anywhere you will remember. Specifically in another folder will make your life a little bit easier here. So just set it up wherever you want. And then I'm going to be clicking install. And then we're going to have a bunch of extra folders be created here. From this point on a pop-up, we will have the option to run PCSX2. I'm going to make sure this is checked. I'm then going to click finish. We're then going to be launch PCSX2. And we're going to see a lot of extra folders have been created here in the background, and this is what we're looking for. From this point, what we're going to do is select our language. We're just going to use the system default. I'm going to click apply. I'm then going to be clicking the next button. And now if I look here, we have created all the files we needed. And specifically what we need are all these extra folders here created by PCSX2. And that's exactly what we're looking for. From this point, I'm simply going to be closing PCSX2 as we no longer need it. And you can feel free to delete all these other files here as well if you want. And just like that, we have most of the necessary files. Now from here, we are going to need a couple of other things, or specifically, we're going to need to populate this BIOS folder here with an actual PS2 BIOS. Again, I'm not going to be sharing any download links to this. If you do have a PS2, you can feel free to dump an existing BIOS, or you can feel free to go online and find the BIOS that you want. But again, I won't be sharing any links for this. Once you have found your BIOS files, they will come in a format similar to this. Depending on the region and depending on the type of PlayStation 2 you have, you might get some extra files, but typically you will have a .bin, a .mec, and a .nvm file, and they'll typically be neat to named SCPH and a couple of numbers after. This can be 1000, 10,000, 1001, something along the lines is typically what you're looking for when you have your BIOS files. I'll be leaving some more information linked in the description down below to the specific documentation so you can see the different file naming structure. So now that we have all the necessary files here, what we're going to be doing is creating a new folder to put everything inside, and then we're going to be putting it on our Xbox. What we're going to be doing is right clicking here, and we're going to be creating a new folder named PCSX2. It's best to keep this in lowercase, but I feel like capitals won't make any issue either. We're then going to be copying all of the rest of our folders here, and we're going to be putting it inside this PCSX2 folder. From this point, we're going to be opening up the internal storage on our Xbox on our PC. We're going to be looking for the system folder, and what we're going to be doing is transferring over this entire PCSX2 folder to the system BIOS folder on our Retroarch. Simply drag this over and let it transfer over. And once this is done, we have set up all the files, we've transferred over all the necessary games, and we are just about ready to go. From this point, we're going to be heading over to Retroarch, we're going to be finishing up some final things, and then we're going to be loading up our PS2 and our PS2 games. So now that we're over on our Xbox, I will mention if you are using an external drive like me, you might get this pop-up on screen when you first connect it to your Xbox. If this is your first time plugging in your drive, you might get this pop-up asking if you'd like to use it for Xbox game storage or media storage. It's really important here that you select media storage so we can add whatever files we want on here. Otherwise, if you select game storage, it will fully wipe your drive and only allow you to install Xbox games on this. So it's important that you make sure this is entered correctly. However, some people have had issue with Retroarch and with the latest version of dev mode. I would make sure your drive is formatted in an exFAT format. I've read this can help with some issues. So inside Windows, all you need to do is right click your drive. You can click Formats, and during the formatting process, just make sure to select exFAT like you can see on screen. And hopefully doing this should make your drive readable and having no issues inside Retroarch. But this is something to keep in mind. Once we're over on our Xbox, we're going to be launching Retroarch. And once Retroarch is launched, there's a couple things we're going to have to do to have everything set up fully here. The first thing we're going to be doing is creating a brand new configuration file, and we're going to be changing a couple settings there. To this, we're going to be coming to our main menu. We're going to be coming down to configuration file, and we're going to be clicking save new configuration. This is going to be a new file that we can load to at any time with all the specific PS2 stuff. We're then going to be loading this new configuration file by coming up to the top here. We're going to be clicking on load configuration, and we're going to be coming down here to the new config file that we have here. We're going to be clicking the A button to load this up, and now we are loaded into the new configuration file. From this point, we're going to be clicking the B button a couple of times to get back to the main menu. Your Retroarch might glitch a little bit. You just need to click a couple of buttons and it should come back here to the main thing. From this point, we're going to be coming to the left. We're going to be coming to settings. We're going to be coming to drivers right here. We're going to be coming to video, and we're going to make sure that our video is set up as D3D11 just to make sure that we have this set up correctly. Once you have this set, we're going to be coming back to our main menu. We're going to be coming to configuration file, and we're going to be saving the current config. We're going to be clicking the B button to come back out of here again. We're going to be coming up here to load core, and now we're going to be searching for our Sony-PlayStation 2 core. And here there should be only one option, PCSX2. We're going to be clicking the A button to select this. From this point, our core is now selected. We're then going to be coming down to, we're going to be clicking on load content, and here we're going to be locating to where our games are. Now, if your games are on your external drive, they will show up on the E drive right here. However, if you're using the internal storage like me on your Xbox, we're going to be coming to our S drive. We're going to be coming to program files, Windows apps. Here we're going to have to locate to our Retroarch folder. So again, it's the second Retroarch folder. I'm going to be coming to games. I'm going to be coming to PS2, and here you can see my jackanddaxter.iso file. I can click the A button to open this up. If you have multiple cores that can read this file format, so in this case a .iso, they will show up here. But again, we're going to have to click current core, PCSX2, click the A button to select this, and then it will take a second or two and our game will start to load up. Now, as mentioned earlier in the video, PCSX2 is still under development, so the experience you get when playing games will vary greatly. Some games will perform really well, some games won't perform at all, and some games will perform very weirdly. So this is something to keep in mind when trying to play PS2 games on your Xbox Series S or your Xbox Series X. And just like that, you can see my game loaded up. From previous versions in my previous video, it's already much more stable than what it was before, so that's already really good to see, and I'm really happy to see this. From this point, we can open up our Retroarch menu with whatever menu toggle you have. For me, it's down and select, and we're going to be opening up this menu right here. We're then going to be scrolling down here until we see the options tab. We're going to be clicking the A button to open this up, and here we're going to see some specific PS2 options for this. Now, what we have here are a couple of things. The first thing we can do is select a system BIOS. Now, this should be automatically selected when you load up your console based on the BIOS you have, or if you have multiple BIOSes available in your folder, you should be able to select the different BIOSes here. Below this, then we can select our system language. Here you can choose between a couple of different things. We can enable fast loading, which will basically skip some disk checks. In most cases, I would recommend leaving this off, but if you are having some issues with some games, you can try enabling this and disabling this. This is something that can help load specific games, so it is something to keep in mind. This will require a restart to come into an effect. The next thing we have is the system fast boot. It will basically bypass the original 2 load up screen. I don't know why you'd want to disable this, but you can feel free to turn this on and off if you would want. Again, it will require a restart to come into an effect. We have the system boot to BIOS, which is basically going to skip content loading and load directly into the BIOS. Again, this will require a restart to come into an effect. We have the memory card slot, so here you can choose the memory card slot size, 8 or 32 megabytes. By default, 8 should be enough, but if you are going to be playing a lot of larger games, setting it up to a 32 megabyte will be a good idea here. You can enable a second memory card slot if required. The video renderer will be set to auto, but if you are having some issues in some games, you can try to manually switch between these two to see if you get any better performance, so it's something to keep in mind. This can require a restart to come into an effect. We have the video internal resolution, so by default it'll be native PS2, but you can try to scale up to any of these other options here as well. You can try to play around with this if you want. For the best performance, I would recommend just leaving it on native PS2. We have the video deinterlacing mode, which is going to help remove some of the blur of some games. Again, I'd recommend leaving this on automatic. You can play around with these other options depending on what you're trying to go for. We have the aspect ratio. Again, you can select 4:3 or 16:9. This will also require a restart. It depends if you want to see the games in the original format or if you want them to stretch. The next couple of interesting things we have is video enable 60 FPS patches, which basically allows some games to be forced to run at 60 FPS, more than the original that they would actually run at on a PlayStation 2. Although this can cause some issues and some bugs, so please turn this on with caution. Again, this will require a restart. We have FXAA anti-aliasing, just a 1x, so there's no extra options here, but again, you can enable this as well. It will also require a restart to come into an effect. Most of these other things then you can feel free to play around with, but if we come down a little bit further, we have extra frame skip options. Again, this is something you can play around with a little bit more. We also have our gamepad rumble, which we can turn on and off. And we also have the intensity, which we can turn on and off, which is again is another nice feature. We can set up some dead zones for our sticks. And then after this, it's mostly emulation and hack settings. You can feel free to play around with these. I don't really touch these too much, but it is nice that we have all these extra options here for our PlayStation 2, so we can really set it up exactly how we want. The last thing I'd recommend doing is creating a game playlist. It'll save you a lot of time when trying to find games and select games to play when you're using Retroarch, especially if you're using a lot of different consoles. It's not something I'm going to be showing you in today's video, although I will be leaving a card on screen to my previous video so you can check that out. Anyway guys, I want to take this moment to give a huge shout out to the channel members, Sean Daly and Joshua Davis. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel, I really appreciate it. If you'd like to have your name shout out in future videos or some other perks, be sure to click the join button underneath any video on the channel, I'd greatly appreciate it. Anyway guys, it's as easy as that to play PlayStation 2 games on your Xbox Series S or your Xbox Series X. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like. Subscribe if you're new, check out the other videos on the channel. If you want to support me, be sure to drop a super thanks in this video, I'd greatly appreciate it. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, as always, keep it saucy. Peace.